Dead Island 2 has been out for a while now, and I've recently just finished up my playthrough of it. In this video, I'll go over my experience and in the end, hopefully give you an idea of whether or not it's worth it for you. So let's begin. Dead Island 2 is set in Los Angeles, otherwise known as Hell A, while not exactly an island as the game's name would indicate. LA ends up being a great setting for the game. You play as one of the pre-made characters available to choose from, each with their own strengths and weaknesses, and go on to discover what really caused the zombie outbreak that has basically spiraled LA into chaos. Throughout your time in Dead Island 2, you'll explore different LA neighborhoods like Bel Air and Venice Beach, among others, while slaying zombies in a variety of ways where you'll be using swords, hammers, batons, assault rifles, shotguns, and many other tools at your disposal. And if this sounds fun to you, stick around as I'll get more in depth into the various systems at play. So let's begin with the gameplay. Dead Island 2 is a first-person action game. This means you'll get up close and personal with the zombies that stand in your way. The bulk of the game is melee based, at least for a good part of it, before getting your hands on some firepower. So Dead Island's melee attacks are fairly simple without too much depth. You have your light attacks, which can be made in rapid succession, your heavy attacks, which require a long R2 hold but deal heavy damage, and that's really about it when it comes to attack variations. However, with that in mind, there is a fair amount of choice you have when killing a zombie. Let's say, for instance, you want to take a zombie's leg out so that they can't run after you anymore. Dead Island's awesome limb break system allows you to do just that. Take a sword, do a heavy swipe at a leg, next thing you know that leg goes flying off and the zombie is down and could only crawl towards you. This system is what carries the gameplay quite substantially. It's very detailed as well. Arms fly off, legs get chopped off, you can bash a zombie's face in, have their tongues hanging out of the side. It's all really well detailed, and while it's expected to be in a game like this, the execution by the development team is excellent. You're even able to completely beat down a zombie to a skeleton if you so choose to. Gameplay is more involved than just simple melee. I did talk about that limb break system just now, but the game also has various environmental effects that can add additional damage and status effects to zombies. So, for example, if you see a pool of water somewhere and your weapon does lightning damage, you can strike the water to set off an electric shock to anyone caught in that area, including yourself. There are other combos you can mess around with, like fire and gas, and these elemental combos are also used within the level design. And there are times you may run into a room that's on fire, but with a water jug nearby, you're able to put it out without issue. Guns eventually do become a part of the game about halfway through, and I was actually initially surprised to see the usage of guns in the game because they were introduced to the game pretty deep into it. But regardless, there is an array of different guns you can use, ranging from assault rifles, semi-automatics, shotguns, rifles, even nail guns. And the game manages to balance this newly added firepower pretty well by introducing new ranged enemies and also enemies known as screamers, but I'll get into the enemy detail later on. The workbench in Dead Island 2 is basically your best friend. This is where you go about crafting and upgrading your arsenal. So this is mainly done by finding blueprints, and finding blueprints can be done by completing combat challenges, completing missions, buying them from traders, or just finding them in the open world. Blueprints are essentially crafting plans that allow you to augment your weapon one way or another by adding a perk to it. If you want it to be more powerful, do you want it to swing more faster, want it to break limbs more easily, these are all options among many others that are available to you through the crafting station. The materials for creating these blueprints are actually gathered through the open world. You'll find all sorts of materials going from room to room and rummaging through everything you see in those rooms. Some materials are more rare than others, so you'll have to likely scavenge a little bit harder to find the ones needed for premium blueprints. But aside from that, you'll rarely not have enough of a certain material if you're checking and rummaging often. Dead Island 2 features a rarity system that is quite common these days, where you'll be able to find weapons that range from common, uncommon, rare, superior, and finally legendary weapons as well. The higher the tier of the weapon, the more slots for perks you can equip, and eventually creating a weapon that can shred through enemies with very little issue. So character development in this game is done through skills. So as you level up, you'll acquire more skill slots, and these skills pretty much define the build you're going with. The skill screen we're looking at here is broken down into 4 categories. You have your abilities, which define your active abilities. This can be drop kicking, stomping, dodging, and so on. You also have survivor and slayer abilities, which augment current abilities or give you a passive boost. Then finally, you have your Newman slot, which gives you more build defining skills that have a much larger impact on your character's loadout. This skill system does add further variety to the overall build you can make, but you probably won't see any theory crafting ideas around the combos you can make, as the game doesn't boast that much depth into build creation. Let's talk about the enemies you'll encounter in this game. There are a good amount of different zombies that you'll run into. You have your standard zombies that will limp towards you, take a swing or two. You have runners who live up to their name and sprint towards you. As you progress through the game, more enemy types are introduced. There are crushers who are large, tanky zombies and take a lot of effort to kill. Screamers who will yell and attract nearby zombies to come attack you. You have bloated enemies who fire poison at you from a distance, and even enemies who blow up when they get near you, and some other types as well. I won't go through all of them as I don't want to spoil every encounter, but there are some legitimately tough enemies. It's worth noting that these enemies can also have elemental types attached to them, so you can end up with a zombie who's electrically charged and immune to your electrical attacks, for example. Also fire attacks, poison attacks, so there's a good amount of variety in the types of zombies that you'll run into. Let's now move on and talk about the world of Dead Island 2 and what you'll be doing in it. Dead Island 2 features semi-open world areas. This is something akin to God of War, and each of these areas can feature side quests and NPCs. Some areas are larger than others, where you'll have upwards of 5 side quests. Others might have only 1 or 2, and the NPCs in the game are normally the ones doling out the missions to you, and these side quests vary from needing to find someone, find something, kill someone, and clearing out an area, and other variations of those missions. These side quests aren't really anything to write home about, but they do allow you to break away from the main story. Some NPCs will act as traders. These are essentially people you can go to get new weapons, blueprints, or ammo from, and also stock up on materials you may be short on. Back to the world of Dead Island 2, the main story will have you adventure around LA neighborhoods and districts such as Venice Beach, Hollywood, and even outside of LA into areas like Santa Monica, where I found one particular mission featuring the pier to be great. These areas are fairly different from one another. Some areas feature beaches, others will feature like a fair, others will also feature a hilly landscape, something similar to what Hollywood looks like. You'll even fight through different movie sets at one point, so the overall level design is good. It's not great, but it is good. So let's get into the story a little bit. The story of Dead Island 2 is an interesting mix of attempting to be comedic and serious at the same time. Nothing about the story gripped me in any way. It kind of felt like a B movie that was more of a side thing than something that required my immediate attention. The story is just so predictable. I think if you've seen any zombie movie or played any other zombie game, you may see the ending coming from literally a mile away, and Dead Island 2 doesn't really do much at all to add any new twists. Basically what I'm saying is, no one is playing Dead Island 2 for the story. They're playing it to slice zombies apart in increasingly more fun and different ways. Overall, the story of the game wasn't even particularly long. It took me around 15 hours to complete, and that's not including all the side missions. I believe I did like 4 of them. So to conclude this video, Dead Island 2 isn't hard to recommend if you find it on sale. The game is nothing short of a fun time. They can even play co-op. It's a mindless action game that allows you to get in, kill some zombies, get out, and go about your day. The shallow story and the overall length of the game make it very hard for me to recommend at full price. However, these days the game is very commonly on sale, so for what it is, Dead Island 2 is worth your time if you find it on sale. If you guys enjoyed this review and want to see more of these types of reviews, please let me know in the comments below. Hit the like button, subscribe as well. And I have some more reviews planned up ahead. Immortals of Aveum is coming up next, followed by Greedfall. So let me know what you guys think, and I will see you guys in the next one.